Welcome to A Week in Politics with Michelle Grattan. My name's Mark Evans and I'm Director of the Institute for Governance here at the University of Canberra, and I'll be your host this morning. Good morning, Michelle.
Hi, Mark.
It's interesting that Bill Shorten's leadership is back into focus now. He announced this week that Labour would repeal company tax cuts that have already been legislated for medium-sized companies. This has been labelled a captain's call, but has got him into all sorts of trouble, particularly in terms of making sure that all of his front bench are on message. What should we make of it?
I think it was a mistake rather than a very deliberate captain's call. I think he just didn't concentrate when he was being asked by reporters about Labor's attitude. He thought that that was where the decision internally had landed or would land, and he just really blurted it out. It has caused a lot of trouble, and today the shadow cabinet's going to consider the issue, so we'll have some more clarity about what Bill Shorten left hanging, which was the position of companies with turnovers between 2 million and 10 million a year. Now, these small companies, relatively small companies, of course, are in a position of uncertainty until Labor makes clear what it would do.
So Anthony Albanese has come back to the fore again in Labour politics, hasn't he? He gave the Gough Whitlam address, and he chose that time to map out an alternative manifesto for the Labour Party, and also focused very deliberately on the need for party reform, which of course, in a sense, is calling out Bill Shorten. So how critical do you think these by-elections are becoming for Shorten's leadership? I
think they're becoming very important. There's, of course, so many of them to start with, and also there are two that are very critical: Braddon in Tasmania, Longman in Queensland. They're Labor seats, but they're seats on very narrow margins, and they could easily swing. Now, against that, the history indicates that governments don't win by-elections from oppositions. It's only happened once in a century. The status quo going for Labor, but nevertheless the early polling is not good for Labor, and at this moment people think that anything could happen.
Well, the by-elections seem important for both the Prime Minister and for Bill Shorten.
They've become more important though as time has gone on, I think, for Bill Shorten, because if there were two defeats, if he lost both of them, then I think he would be in serious trouble.
So what does he need to do to win then? What are the issues that he needs to focus on?
They're being seen as something of a referendum on tax policy. Both sides have, of course, unveiled their income tax plans, and the government's plan has been passed by Parliament. The opposition has a plan that would give low and medium income earners higher tax cuts in the short term, but would not give higher income earners tax cuts in the longer term. And of course, this week we saw the government have to withdraw its company tax legislation that would give a tax cut to big companies, and that too is in contention because the government says it'll have another try after the by-elections to get that through.
So after the by-elections, do you think we'll have a better sense about when the next election will be?
Malcolm Turnbull has said all through the next election is next year. There has been speculation that if things really went pear-shaped for Bill Shorten in the by-elections, then maybe that would be brought forward, but certainly the Prime Minister has been pretty adamant on the timing.
Okay. So on company tax then, the government has once again put its tax cuts for big business on the back burner after it couldn't get the numbers in the Senate. Do you think it will have more hope of getting the numbers after the by-election?
Possibly. It's hard to tell. The players here are Pauline Hanson and the Centre Alliance, which used to be the old Nick Xenophon team. Now, both had reason to oppose the company tax cuts at the moment. Pauline Hanson flipped-flopped in an incredible sort of way, but has made the judgment that in Longman they wouldn't go down that well. So she's been tied in before the by-election. Who knows what she will do afterwards. As for the Centre Alliance, well, of course, they have a candidate, Rebecca Sharkey, fighting for her survival in the seat of Mayo in that by-election, which is not getting a lot of attention but is important. And again, I think that their position has been reinforced by the fact that if they voted for the company tax cuts, that mightn't help the Sharkey campaign. So again, they might change after that by-election's over.
So it's an issue where the bargaining politics are really quite complicated by the sounds of it.
Well, yes, that's right, and it is a timing thing, and it's also whether these players think that looking to the main election, they'd be better off supporting or opposing those company tax cuts.
So meanwhile, we have the government battling its own backbenchers over energy policy. The coalition appears to have broad support in the party room for the national energy guarantee, but a few MPs are still threatening to cross the floor if there isn't a focus on pricing. Do you think the dissidents are losing the ground here?
I do think that. Now, Tony Abbott, of course, is the leading dissident, and he and a few others made another play in the party room this week like they did the week before, but you got the feeling that their colleagues are getting impatient with them. One colleague said, if you don't all stop talking about this issue, I won't be here. And what she meant was that she was a marginal seat holder, that unless this issue was sorted and sorted quickly, votes would be lost. And I think that there is a general feeling now, just get this issue out of the way. A number of industry groups briefed government MPs this week. Their message was, we want certainty for investment, we want things settled. And so I think that as the Minister, Josh Frydenberg, goes into a meeting with the states in August, he will have the wind in his sails. Now, it's not across the line yet, but the party room is coming in behind the government, and I think in the end the states and territories will, although the ACT actually is one that's kicking up, even though, of course, it's a very small player, but it has power when you get to a meeting where you need some unanimity.
And does the ACT have any other partners with any other states, or is it sort of out on its own on this?
The Labor states are not as keen, of course, as the non-Labor states, but basically I think they too come into the position of wanting this issue sorted before too long.
Fascinating stuff. Well, thank you again for your time this morning, Michelle.
Thanks, Mark.
And we look forward to seeing you again next week for another Week in Politics with Michelle Grattan.